There comes a moment when a person looks at their life and realizes, this cannot continue as it is. Not because they lack worth or intelligence or goodness, but because their life has become a tangle of unfinished tasks, unspoken fears, unmade decisions, and ungoverned thoughts. If that is where you find yourself today, take heart. For chaos is not a condition, it is a signal that divine order is trying to enter your life. Most people believe their disorder comes from laziness or bad habits. But disorder is spiritual misalignment long before it is physical confusion. A cluttered home mirrors a cluttered mind. A scattered routine mirrors scattered faith. And when the inner life is at war, the outer life collapses under its weight. Let me take you into a moment that has visited you quietly, again and again. You stand in your kitchen, laundry undone, messages unanswered, bills waiting, tasks piling. You look around and feel a whisper of defeat. I can't seem to get my life together. That whisper is not true. It is merely evidence that your spirit is starving for structure. You do not need more hours. You do not need more energy. You do not need another planner or another burst of motivation. You need principles. 7 of them, clear, simple, spiritual, and when practiced, they pull your entire life into alignment with breathtaking speed. But before I reveal them, let me show you the danger of living without spiritual order. If you continue as you are, letting days drift, reacting instead of acting, tolerating what drains you, postponing what matters, the next year will not gently correct itself. It will sharpen the very patterns you are trying to escape. Disorder compounds just as surely as prosperity does. Ignore the law of order, and you do not break it. You experience its negative side. Homes grow heavier, finances tighten, relationships strain, dreams fade, and your spirit, meant for clarity, suffocates under confusion. But hear the promise hidden in this warning. The moment you commit to divine order, every area of your life begins to rearrange itself around that decision. Imagine waking tomorrow with a sense of direction so clear that your day feels lighter before it even begins. Imagine your home becoming peaceful instead of overwhelming. Imagine your finances finally reflecting the wisdom you carry. Imagine your inner world, your thoughts, your intentions, your desires, moving in one unified direction. This is what spiritual order creates. Let me paint a simple scene that illustrates the difference. A woman once came to me exhausted, not by work, but by her own disorganization. She felt she was always behind, always apologizing, always catching up. She believed she had too much to manage, but what she really lacked was structure. I gave her 7 principles, 7 steps infused with divine order. She practiced them faithfully for 90 days. At the end of those days, she said, "It feels as if my life finally exhaled." Her home softened, her money stabilized, her relationships blossomed, her intuition sharpened. Her days unfolded like a calm river instead of a storm. That same shift can happen for you. But listen closely. These principles will not work if you treat them casually. Order requires agreement. It requires intention. It requires attention. It requires the willingness to stop letting chaos speak the loudest voice in your life. Now let me ask you a question that holds more power than it appears. What would your life look like if everything in it were placed in divine order? Not forced order, not frantic perfectionism, but the kind of order that feels like breathing, that gives you room, peace, clarity, and direction. Look deeper. Imagine waking into a life where your mornings have rhythm, your finances have purpose, your relationships have harmony, your spaces have calm, your decisions feel guided, your time feels meaningful, your spiritual life feels rooted. This is not fantasy. This is what happens when your life aligns with truth. Let me give you another moment you know too well. You lie awake late at night, replaying what you didn't finish, what you forgot, what you delayed, what you fear. Your mind cycles in circles. You promise yourself, tomorrow, I'll start fresh. But without principles in place, tomorrow repeats today. This is why you feel stuck. Not because you are weak, but because you are working without divine structure. And nothing can rise without structure. Even the universe had to be formed through order before it could hold life. So listen to me with your whole heart. The life you want is waiting for the structure that can sustain it. Your dreams are not denied. They are simply unorganized. When you put your life in order, your thoughts, your speech, your home, your actions, your desires finally have a place to land. A man once told me he felt cursed. Everything slipped through his hands. Money, opportunities, relationships. But when he learned the first principle of spiritual order, clear the old to make room for the new, his entire reality shifted. He cleaned his home. He blessed his belongings. He released what no longer served his path. And within weeks, opportunities he had prayed for suddenly appeared. Order made room for them. Let me speak directly to you. You are not meant to live scattered. You are not meant to live overwhelmed. You are not meant to live one step behind your own life. You are meant to live in clarity, creation, and divine rhythm. The 7 principles you are about to hear will not simply tidy your days, they will transform your entire vibration. They will lift the heaviness from your mind. They will clear the spiritual debris from your path. They will release the blessings that chaos has been blocking. They will restore your confidence. They will give your life shape, direction, and strength. But you must listen, not passively, not for comfort, but for transformation. Because if you apply these principles, your life will become unrecognizable in the best way. And if you ignore them, nothing changes. So, as this message continues, listen as someone who knows they were not created for confusion. Listen as someone ready to step into alignment. Listen as someone who understands that organization is not a chore. It is a spiritual gateway. For the moment you place your life in divine order, your blessings know exactly where to find you. My friend, whenever a person looks upon their life and feels the quiet ache of disorder, they imagine at once that something is wrong with them, that they lack ability or character or strength. Yet I tell you plainly, disorder is never the mark of an inferior soul. It is merely the sign that divine order stands just outside the door, waiting to be admitted. The moment one feels overwhelmed, the moment the home becomes heavy, the moment the mind grows cluttered, it is not judgment, it is invitation. For the spirit cannot endure confusion without whispering for correction. Chaos is not punishment. It is the alarm bell that rings before breakthrough. And if one listens closely enough, beneath the noise of undone tasks and unmade decisions, one hears the call of the infinite saying, "Prepare the way, I would enter." There have been countless times when seekers came to me distressed, believing their disordered affairs meant failure. They said, "Miss Shinn, everything feels out of place. My home is in disarray. My mind is troubled. My days escape me before I can grasp them. I fear I have lost control." And I would smile gently and reply, "My dear, you have not lost control. You have merely lost alignment. Let us restore order, and everything else will follow." For disorder is always the effect of spiritual weight a person has carried too long. The home mirrors it, the body feels it, the speech reveals it, and the life expresses it. I once worked with a woman whose home had become a monument to unfinished intentions. Papers lay untouched, clothes waited to be tended, letters unanswered, drawers overflowing with forgotten fragments of former seasons. She lived under a cloud of low, constant fatigue. She said, "I try to fix it, but the moment I begin, I feel defeated." I told her, "You are not defeated, my dear. You are simply attempting to build upon a crowded foundation. Nothing can stand where the old has not been cleared." And with that, I instructed her to begin, not with effort, nor with hours of labor, but with a spiritual act, to speak every morning and throughout the day, "Divine order now sweeps through my mind and my affairs." She obeyed, and slowly the heaviness lifted from her spirit. Soon her hands began to move with a new lightness. As she cleared one corner of her home, she found her thoughts clearing. As she released one drawer of unnecessary objects, she felt released from memories that had long weighed upon her. And as divine order moved through her outer space, her inner space responded in harmony. Within a month, she said to me, "Miss Shinn, it feels as though my home breathes again, and so do I." For you see, there is no line between the inner world and the outer. They are one continuous field. What the mind harbors, the home displays. What the heart fears, the routine reflects. A cluttered home is often a cluttered mind calling for stillness. A chaotic schedule is often the sign of a person who has forgotten the rhythm of divine timing. And a desk covered in unfinished tasks speaks of a soul burdened with unspoken doubts. When the consciousness is clouded, the affairs cannot be clear. Thus, the first principle of organizing one's life is not to purchase boxes or planners or elaborate systems. It is to prepare the inner ground, to cast out the old burdens, the stale thoughts, the grudges, the fears, the self-condemnation, and to welcome divine order as a living presence. One must say, with sincerity, "What no longer serves my path now releases me." These words act as spiritual wind, blowing away the dead leaves of former seasons. A gentleman once came to me who was always behind in his accounts, behind in his work, behind in his friendships, behind in the general flow of his life. He said, "Miss Shinn, if I could just find the right system, I believe I could manage everything." I replied, "The system is not outside you. The order must first be within you. Let us begin by clearing the ground." I instructed him to bless his home room by room, speaking aloud that divine order reigned there. I advised him to handle every neglected correspondence with peace, blessing each one as a completed task. Within a matter of weeks, he reported feeling lighter, more focused, more precise in his actions. His superiors noticed his newfound clarity. His friends remarked that he seemed calmer, more grounded. He said, "Miss Shinn, I feel as though something heavy has lifted off my life." And indeed it had. The heaviness had never been in the tasks, but in the thoughts. People do not realize how deeply the subconscious responds to their surroundings. A corner filled with objects one secretly resents holds energy that disrupts intuition. A drawer stuffed with papers one intends to deal with someday speaks to the subconscious of avoidance, and avoidance multiplies. A home that carries the remnants of past failures slows the arrival of new opportunities, for the subconscious believes its owner is not ready. When, however, the home becomes a sanctuary for the new life, the subconscious responds as a faithful servant, opening the way for fresh order to appear. Even small acts of clearing bring swift results, for the law is quick. I remember a woman who cleared merely one table, a single surface in her home, declaring as she worked, "This clearing makes way for my good." Within 48 hours, she received a call from an employer offering her a position she had desired for months. She returned to me astonished. "Miss Shinn, how could one table change my fortune?" I answered, "My dear, the table did not change your fortune. The obedience to divine order did. By clearing that space, you signaled to the universe that you expected your life to move. During this initial phase, others begin to notice a shift in you. They may not know what to call it, but they sense it. You carry yourself with more purpose, speak with more assurance, decide with more clarity. You no longer feel as though life is happening to you. You feel as though you are participating in its creation. This shift of consciousness is the first true evidence that divine order has entered the scene. Say with me now, divine order now sweeps through my mind, my home, and my affairs. I release what is no longer required, and I welcome the new. These words open the gate. They are the broom of spirit clearing the way for your greatest good. And once divine order takes its place, nothing can remain in confusion. Not your home, not your thoughts, not your time, not your relationships. All begins to align, quietly at first, then unmistakably, then triumphantly. You are preparing the field, and soon it will bear fruit in perfect ways. My friend, once the ground is cleared, once the mind has softened, the burdens have been lifted, and the outer space begins to reflect the inner willingness, there is a mighty law that comes into play, a law more powerful than any earthly system of order or routine. It is the law of the spoken word, for it is not enough to remove the clutter of yesterday. One must speak the blueprint of tomorrow. The universe does not arrange itself by accident. It arranges itself by command, and man's command is his word. Many people attempt to organize their lives through effort, through detailed plans, through lists and schedules, and renewed willpower. Yet effort without decree is like building a house without a foundation. The outer structure may stand for a time, but the first strong wind causes it to sway. A person may tidy their surroundings for a day, structure their routine for a week, or attempt discipline for a month, but unless the inner word has changed, the old pattern returns with relentless precision. It is not because the person is weak, it is because the spoken word was never altered. Man must speak order if he wishes to see order. I once knew a woman whose affairs were always in disarray. She mislaid important papers. She forgot appointments. Her tasks overlapped like tangled threads. Yet she was diligent, sincere, full of effort. She believed she suffered from a lack of time, but time was not her adversary. Her speech was. She constantly repeated, "Everything is always such a mess. I cannot keep up. I am behind in everything." These words, spoken casually, were seeds planted in the fertile soil of her subconscious, and the law, obedient and impartial as always, brought forth exactly the conditions she decreed. When she came to me, exhausted and ashamed, I told her gently, "My dear, your affairs are not disordered because you are incapable. They are disordered because your words have given confusion the right to exist." I instructed her to shift her speech immediately. Each morning she was to declare, "Divine order governs my day. I accomplish all things with ease." Throughout the day, whenever she felt overwhelmed, she was to speak, "There is perfect time for every task. Nothing is rushed, nothing is delayed." Within 2 weeks, she reported noticeable changes. She found lost papers in plain sight. She remembered appointments without effort. Tasks that once took hours now took minutes. And even others remarked how calm and capable she seemed. She said, "Miss Shinn, it feels as though a great invisible hand has taken hold of my day." I replied, "Indeed, the hand of divine order moves wherever the word directs it. This is why I say that the word is the rudder of life. The body obeys it. The mind obeys it. Circumstances shape themselves according to it. A home will fall into confusion when the speech is confused, and a home will fall into harmony when the speech is harmonious. Words are vibrations, and vibrations gather after their kind. When a person speaks scattered words, their environment reflects scattered energy. When they speak clear, exact words, order appears. The subconscious mind is a faithful servant, but it requires clear instructions. If a person says, "My life is overwhelming," the subconscious arranges conditions accordingly. If a person says, "I cannot get ahead," it ensures that progress remains just beyond reach. But if the person says, "Everything I do prospers under grace," the subconscious organizes the outer world to match that truth. A man once came to me whose life resembled a perpetual storm. He rushed everywhere, rushed through breakfast, rushed to work, rushed through his tasks, rushed home, rushed to bed. He believed that rushing created efficiency, yet his affairs grew ever more tangled. He said, "Miss Shinn, no matter how fast I move, something always goes wrong." I told him, "You have been speaking failure into every hour. The law cannot bring you calm while you prophesy confusion." I gave him a simple decree. I move in divine order. All things unfold at the right time. He was to speak it slowly, with authority, several times a day. He resisted at first, for he believed slowing down would worsen his difficulties. But spiritual law often requires the opposite of man's instinct. Within days, his rushing eased. Within weeks, his work improved. Within months, his reputation grew for steadiness and reliability. He said, "Miss Shinn, I feel as though I have stepped into a new life." I answered, "You stepped into a new word, and the life followed." Even when the outer appears chaotic, the spoken word is the architect of the unseen. When one speaks truth in the midst of disorder, the truth acts like a plumb line, straightening every crooked beam of one's affairs. The moment a person decrees, "Divine order governs my life," a spiritual geometry begins shaping circumstances into their proper sequence. People appear at the right time. Opportunities arrive without strain. Decisions become clear. Time expands. Confusion dissolves. It is not the world that must be reorganized. It is the consciousness. I remember the story of the centurion who said to Jesus, "Speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed." He understood authority. He understood that a true command is not repeated endlessly. It is issued once, with faith, and the law obeys. This same authority governs the organization of life. When you speak, divine order is established in my home. The home begins to align. When you speak, divine order reigns in my finances. The channels of supply open. When you speak, my mind is clear and exact. Your thoughts gather themselves like soldiers returning to formation. Others will notice the shift long before you understand its full extent. They will see a new precision in your movements. They will hear a new certainty in your voice. They will sense a new steadiness in your presence. They will come to rely upon you, for the ordered soul becomes a tower of strength to others. The world respects those who command their circumstances through spiritual law, for such individuals carry an atmosphere of quiet mastery. Say with me now, "My word is my wand. I speak divine order into every area of my life." Feel the authority of those words. They do not beg, they command. They do not plead, they establish. And once spoken with faith, they go forth and prepare the way for your new life. If you desire an organized life, you must first become an organized consciousness. and the organized consciousness begins with the spoken word. My friend, once your words begin to establish the foundation of divine order, a new lesson arises before you, one that governs the rhythm of your days, the unfolding of your tasks, and the movement of your entire life. It is the law of divine sequence. For life does not leap from chaos to completion in a single bound. It unfolds step by step, in perfect order. Just as the universe itself unfolded from the first command, "Let there be light." A person cannot organize their entire life at once, any more than a tree can bear fruit the moment a seed touches the ground. There is an appointed time for seed, and for sapling, and for shade. And when man understands this, he ceases to strain after what is ahead of him and begins to honor the step at his feet. Many people suffer because they attempt to do everything at once. They awaken with a dozen tasks in their mind and no spiritual alignment to hold them. Their day scatters because their spirit is scattered. They begin one thing and leap to another, and by evening, they find themselves tired in body and empty in spirit, with little to show for their labor. They believe this is a flaw in their discipline, but it is only a misunderstanding of divine sequence. The law says, one step is revealed, one step is taken, and the next appears. When man honors the step before him, the path ahead is always smooth. When he rushes ahead, he walks into brambles of his own making. I once counseled a man who woke each morning overwhelmed by his responsibilities. He said, "Miss Shinn, I feel as though the moment I open my eyes, 1,000 demands rise against me." I told him, "My dear, no man was meant to live beneath 1,000 demands. Divine law reveals only one task at a time, and it reveals it with peace." I instructed him to begin each day with this decree: "Infinite intelligence directs my day. I accomplish all things in perfect sequence." He was to sit for a moment in silence until one task, not 10, not 20, but one, rose gently to his mind. That task he was to do first. Then he was to pause and allow the next to appear. Within a short time, he found his days flowing like a clear stream rather than a flood. He completed more than he ever had, yet felt less burdened. "Miss Shinn," he said, "I no longer feel chased by my life. I feel led." I replied, "That is the mark of divine sequence. Life ceases to hunt you and begins to guide you. Even nature obeys this law. No dawn comes before its hour. No river overflows before the rains. No harvest appears before the seed has embraced the soil. Everything follows an appointed rhythm, and yet man, in his impatience, seeks to outrun God, and in doing so, steps out of alignment. But when he yields to divine sequence, the strain falls away. Tasks no longer feel heavy, they feel purposeful. Time no longer feels scarce, it feels sufficient. Decisions no longer produce dread, they produce clarity. A woman I once instructed suffered greatly from the feeling that she never had enough time. She rushed from one duty to another, carrying the weight of all 7 days upon her shoulders. I said to her, "My dear, time is not your enemy. Confusion is. When the mind is confused, it loses its rhythm. Let us restore your rhythm." I gave her this decree: there is perfect time for every task. I move in calm and perfect order. I instructed her to speak it every time she felt herself hurrying. Within a month, she had transformed. Not only was she completing more tasks, but she found herself with new pockets of rest, new moments of joy, new clarity in her work. She said, "Miss Shinn, it is as though time bends to accommodate me." I answered, "It always has, my dear. You simply learn to stop racing against it." There is also a hidden blessing in divine sequence. Intuition becomes unmistakable. When the mind is no longer tangled with 10 concerns at once, intuition can rise cleanly. It whispers the next step without interference. And the next step is always sufficient. The Israelites in the wilderness received manna for a single day. No more, no less. Should they gather more, it would spoil, for God wished to teach them trust in daily provision. So it is with your day. The law reveals what you are to do now. You must trust that what you will do tomorrow will be revealed tomorrow. Do not attempt to plan the entire journey when only the next step has been illuminated. I once guided a teacher whose duties overwhelmed her. Each day brought new demands, new responsibilities, new pressures. She believed she must manage everything with her own strength. But when she attempted everything, she accomplished little. I taught her to allow intuition to organize her day. She would speak, "Infinite intelligence reveals the task that matters most." Then she would wait. She found that one task would stand out with a quiet glow of importance. She would begin with that. Often, it was the very task that simplified all others. She discovered that many duties she had once fretted over resolved themselves when she followed the intuitive step. "Miss Shinn," she said, "I feel carried through my day." And I replied, "You are being carried. Divine sequence is doing the heavy lifting." During this stage, the listener begins to appear different to others. They no longer seem flustered or scattered. Their timing improves. They arrive precisely when needed, speak precisely when required, and act precisely when directed. People remark on their punctuality, their clarity, their calm. Their presence feels orderly, and others respond with trust and respect. Divine sequence not only organizes your day, it organizes your reputation. Let me tell you something that may startle you. A single aligned task does more for your life than 10 tasks performed in fear. For when you follow the task revealed by Spirit, that task carries within it the blueprint of the next. It is like stepping stones across a river. Once the first is stepped upon, the next rises into view. Say with me now. One step is revealed. I follow gladly. Divine order directs my day. These words calm the rushing mind and open the intuitive ear. They invite divine sequence to orchestrate your time. And when divine sequence governs your time, your life falls into place as naturally as the sun follows its appointed arc across the sky. Do not seek to organize your entire life in a single day. Seek only to align the next step. For when the next step is right, the whole path is right. And you, my friend, are learning to walk it. My friend, as you continue walking in divine sequence, you will soon discover that there is one realm where disorder reveals itself most plainly: your finances. For money, more than any other outer element, mirrors the state of a person's inner world. It is never truly a matter of arithmetic. It is a matter of consciousness. And when consciousness becomes clear, calm, and aligned with truth, finances follow suit with astonishing precision. It is for this reason that I say, often to the surprise of my students, that money is the easiest thing in your life to organize. Not because it arranges itself naturally, but because it responds immediately to spiritual law. Disordered finances are almost always the expression of disordered thought. When a person fears lack, the fear scatters their energy. They avoid clarity. They shrink from looking at statements or bills, believing ignorance protects them from anxiety. Yet this avoidance creates spiritual fog, and in fog, nothing moves. A person cannot organize what they refuse to face, and they cannot bring order to what they continually name as confusing, hopeless, or too much. The subconscious, hearing these decrees, shapes conditions accordingly. I once counseled a woman whose financial affairs were tangled beyond recognition. Papers were piled in drawers, receipts lost, bills unpaid, accounts neglected. She said, "Miss Shinn, I cannot bear to look at my finances. They frighten me." I told her, "My dear, they do not frighten you. You frighten yourself with your thoughts about them. Let us bring divine order into this matter." I instructed her first to bless her money, every coin, every bill, every statement, as a symbol of divine substance. She was to speak, "There is no loss in divine mind. What is mine now appears under grace." Then I told her to clear a small area of her home and make it the sacred place where she would organize her finances. Not with dread, but with expectancy. For expectancy is the magnet of demonstration. Within a few days, she reported that debts she feared were not as severe as she'd imagined. Forgotten credits surfaced, and channels of supply began opening. Within 2 months, her finances were not merely in order. They were flourishing. She said, "Miss Shinn, I feel like a new woman." I replied, "Indeed you are, for your consciousness has changed. You see, my friend, money is not a cold, unfeeling substance. It is a servant of the spiritual law. It obeys the vibration of the one who receives it. When a person speaks of money with fear, they push it away. When they speak of money with resentment, they block its return. When they speak of money as elusive, it becomes elusive. But when they speak of money as blessed, as abundant, as faithful, as divinely guided, it begins to flow with grace. Man's word determines the behavior of his supply. A man once came to me who seemed forever to live just short. He earned enough, yet his money slipped away like water through a sieve. He said, "Miss Shinn, I do not understand it. I count every penny, yet something always consumes it." I listened for a moment and said, "My dear, the problem is in your speech." He looked confused. I reminded him of the countless times he had said, "Money vanishes. I can never hold on to it. Something always comes up." These statements, spoken casually, acted as commands. I instructed him to replace them with, "My purse is the magic purse of the spirit. It can never be depleted." He was to speak this morning, noon, and night. Within weeks, he noticed that unexpected expenses ceased, opportunities increased, and his money no longer vanished, but multiplied. He returned with wonder in his eyes. "Miss Shinn," he said, "it is as though my money now behaves itself." I replied, "It always behaves itself. It behaves according to your word." The ancient Ethiopian mystics taught of the unemptying vessel, a hidden spiritual storehouse that refills itself whenever one blesses what he has. This vessel, they said, could not be exhausted, for it is rooted in God's infinite substance. When I encountered this teaching in my own studies, I smiled, for it echoed perfectly the truth I had long practiced. You cannot deplete the magic purse of the Spirit. You may shake it, you may spend from it, you may fear it empty, but the moment you speak truth, the purse fills again from unseen channels. Money is organized spiritually before it is organized physically. Thus, the first step in bringing order to your finances is not budgeting, not calculating, not counting. It is blessing. You must speak over your finances the truth that overrides fear. You must say, "God is my supply and my support. My income now increases under grace." When fear rises, speak, "There is no fear in divine love." When you feel confused, speak, "Divine intelligence arranges my financial affairs in perfect order." These are not idle words. They are spiritual tools. A woman once came to me who had lived her entire life in dread of money. She feared bills, feared spending, feared being asked for help, feared opening her own bank statements. Her finances reflected this fear, always shrinking, always strained. I said to her, "My dear, let us remove fear from the throne and place faith upon it." I instructed her to handle her money with gratitude rather than fear, to place each bill before her and bless it, saying, "You are paid in full by divine order." Something remarkable happened. She felt a sense of peace for the first time in years. That peace became order. That order became demonstration. Within one winter season, her finances transformed entirely. She said, "Miss Shinn, I feel protected." I said, "You are. When divine order governs your finances, nothing can take from you what is yours." During this financial reorganization, others begin to perceive a notable change in you. You no longer shrink from discussions about money. Your voice carries confidence. Your decisions carry clarity. People feel safe in trusting responsibilities to you. Opportunities, sensing your readiness, draw near. Even your appearance begins to reflect prosperity. For prosperity is not a number, it is an atmosphere. And man carries his atmosphere with him wherever he goes. Do not fear putting your financial house in order. Divine law delights in clarity. It rejoices in right stewardship. When you bring your finances into harmony with truth, the universe responds instantly. What once felt like a burden becomes a blessing. What once felt confusing becomes orderly. What once seemed scarce becomes abundant. Say with me now, "My supply is endless and immediate. The magic purse of the Spirit is my purse, and it fills itself continually." Let these words enter the soil of your subconscious, for they will bear fruit quickly. And as you continue organizing your life under divine law, you will find that nothing, absolutely nothing, remains in confusion. Not your mind, not your time, not your home, not your finances. All falls into place under grace in perfect ways. My friend, now that you have brought order to your thoughts, your words, your time, and your finances, there arises another sphere that must be brought under divine law, for it is the most constant mirror of your own consciousness. Your home. A home is not simply a place in which you eat and sleep. It is a living portrait of your inner world. When one enters a home, one enters the landscape of the occupant's spirit. A peaceful home speaks of a peaceful soul. A disordered home speaks of a disordered mind. A neglected home speaks of neglected faith. And a radiant, orderly home reveals a consciousness aligned with divine design. Many people imagine that tending their home is a trivial or merely material matter, something beneath spiritual attention. But I tell you plainly, your home is a silent prayer that speaks without ceasing. It either calls forth harmony or invites confusion. It either attracts blessing or repels it. It either announces readiness for your good or declares that you have no room for it. A person cannot receive new furnishings of life, new opportunities, new relationships, new abundance, when the house of the soul is crowded with yesterday's shadows. I once worked with a woman who kept her home filled with objects from her past, old letters, old garments, trinkets tied to former sorrows, gifts from relationships long dissolved. She said, "Miss Shinn, I feel stuck. Nothing moves in my life." I visited her home and immediately saw the reason. Every room was crowded with memories she had not spiritually released. Her home was a museum of former versions of herself. I said gently, "My dear, you are living among ghosts. To step into your divine future, you must clear the remnants of your past." She hesitated, for she believed discarding these items meant discarding parts of herself. But once she understood that releasing the old made room for the new, she obeyed. Each item she removed, she blessed, saying, "You served me once, you serve me no longer. I release you under grace." In the weeks that followed, her spirit lightened, her opportunities multiplied, and she stood straighter, as though unburdened by unseen weight. She said, "Miss Shinn, it feels as though the air in my home has changed." I replied, "It has, for the atmosphere of your home now matches the new atmosphere of your consciousness. You see, there is a spiritual law of the vacuum. When the old is cleared, the new must appear. Nature abhors emptiness, and spirit fills every cleared space with its perfect expression. When you release objects that no longer serve you, you declare your readiness for higher good. When you beautify your surroundings, you signal that you expect beauty in your life. When you bring order to your home, you establish order in your future. Even a single act of beautification carries great metaphysical power. I once told a woman who longed for prosperity to place a fresh vase of flowers in her living room. She protested, saying she could not afford such luxuries. I told her, "My dear, flowers are not luxuries, they are declarations. They say, 'Beauty belongs to me, I expect good.'" She followed my instruction. Within a week, she received an unexpected sum of money. She returned astonished. I smiled and said, "You opened the door to beauty, and beauty answered? It is not the flower that brings supply, it is the consciousness the flower awakens." Likewise, tidying a single drawer or corner can shift a person's entire vibration. A man once came to me discouraged, believing no opportunity would ever come his way. I instructed him to organize his desk, blessing each item as he touched it. He thought the suggestion trivial, but obeyed. Within days, he received a letter offering him work in a field he long desired. When he returned, he said, "Miss Shinn, how could my desk have affected my career?" I replied, "My dear, you cleared the passageway. Divine order requires clear channels. When the outer becomes orderly, the inner aligns, and opportunity rushes through. Your home also affects how others perceive you. A person who lives in disorder often feels embarrassed to welcome guests. They shrink from hospitality, believing themselves unprepared. This shrinks their opportunities. But one whose home carries harmony walks with confidence. Others feel safe in their presence. They trust their judgment. They perceive them as dignified, reliable, grounded. For man cannot hide the state of his soul. It expresses itself in the place he dwells. Now let me speak of beauty, for beauty is divine law made visible. A beautiful home is not one filled with expensive objects. It is one where the spirit feels uplifted. Even the simplest dwelling becomes a palace when arranged with love, tended with care, and blessed with truth. Beauty opens the heart. Beauty reminds the subconscious that life is meant to be joyful, not burdensome. Beauty, in its quiet way, is a spiritual teacher. I once instructed a young woman who longed for love, yet her home reflected none of the warmth she sought. Her curtains were heavy, her colors dull, her rooms arranged without care. I said to her, "My dear, you cannot attract love while dwelling in loveless surroundings. Prepare your home as though love were already on its way." She brightened her rooms, placed soft touches of beauty throughout, and blessed them with the affirmation, "Love dwells here." Within 3 months, she met the man who later became her husband. She said, "Miss Shinn, it was as though the moment I made room for love, love arrived." I replied, "It always does, for man must prepare the vessel before the blessing can pour forth. So it is with every desire. If you long for peace, your home must reflect peace. If you long for opportunity, your home must make room for it. If you long for abundance, your home must embody abundance in its cleanliness, its order, its welcoming atmosphere. The home is the stage upon which your future enters. Say with me now, My surroundings reflect harmony, clarity, and peace. I live in divine order, and divine order lives in me. As you speak these words, feel your home becoming a sacred extension of your spirit, not a burden, not a task, but a sanctuary. For when the house of the soul is prepared, the blessings of heaven know exactly where to land. My friend, now we approach the very center of your transformation, for no matter how beautifully your home is arranged, how orderly your finances have become, or how rhythmically your days unfold, none of these outer expressions can remain steady unless the inner life, the house of thought, is kept in divine order. The ordered mind is the root from which all organized living springs. Without it, a person's affairs may flourish briefly, yet soon return to confusion, for the soil in which they were planted was never truly cleared. A man's life is fashioned from the thoughts he entertains. His habits follow his thoughts. His speech follows his thoughts. His decisions follow his thoughts, and his destiny follows all three. Therefore, the mind must become a garden tended with vigilance, watered with truth, cleared of weeds of fear and doubt, and guarded by what I often call the watchman at the gate. This watchman is not stern nor tense. He is firm, calm, and loyal. His sole duty is to deny entry to destructive thoughts. For thoughts are visitors, not rulers. They possess no authority unless man grants it. One of the greatest errors people make is believing they are their thoughts. They imagine that every fear, doubt, or anxiety that passes through the mind has a right to remain. They say, "I cannot help what I think," not realizing that such a declaration gives the subconscious permission to accept every intruding thought as law. But the subconscious is impressionable. It does not reason, it obeys. And if man allows fear to dominate his inner chambers, the subconscious organizes his outer world to match that fear. I once counseled a woman whose mind moved like a restless tide. She said, "Miss Shinn, I am exhausted by my own thinking. I wake with fear, I walk with worry, and I sleep with questions." I told her gently, "My dear, your mind is not the tyrant you imagine. It is the servant you have neglected." I taught her to sit each morning in silence, not to empty her mind, but to order it. She was to speak quietly, "Peace, be still." This command, borrowed from the master who calmed the sea, begins as a whisper, but soon becomes a force. As she spoke it, she imagined her thoughts aligning themselves in perfect rows, like soldiers receiving instruction. Within a week, she reported more calm. Within a month, she said, "Miss Shinn, I no longer chase my thoughts. They wait for me to lead them." That is the fruit of an ordered mind. Another woman came to me believing she suffered from indecision. She said, "I cannot choose anything. Every option frightens me." I told her, "My dear, indecision is not a lack of choices. It is a lack of inner order. When the mind is cluttered, no path appears clear." I gave her an affirmation. "Divine intelligence now chooses through me." She was to say it whenever confusion rose. The affirmation does not force decisions, it clarifies them. It removes the fog. It calls intuition to the forefront. One afternoon, weeks later, she arrived beaming. "Miss Shinn," she said, "I made 3 decisions today without hesitation." It felt as though something within me simply knew. I replied, "That something is not new. It is your intuition, long buried under the rubble of fear. Intuition is the voice of divine order whispering inside your own consciousness. It is never frantic, never rushed, never uncertain. It speaks only when the mind grows quiet enough to hear it. And this is why mental clutter must be cleared. If 10 thoughts shout at once, intuition withdraws. If fear fills the room, intuition stays silent. But when order enters the mind, intuition returns as naturally as a bird returns to a quiet branch. I once taught a businessman who prided himself on doing 100 things at once. He lived in constant mental motion, counting, planning, worrying, imagining obstacles before they appeared. He believed this frenzy helped him succeed, but inwardly he was exhausted. His affairs began to fail because his mind had grown too loud to hear guidance. I told him, "My dear, put down 99 of your thoughts, and one, the right one, will lead you." I instructed him to begin each day by choosing one clear intention and speaking it aloud. Today, infinite intelligence directs me to the essential. He found that when one intention was chosen, all lesser impulses fell away. His productivity increased, his errors diminished, and doors that had long been closed opened suddenly. "Miss Shinn," he said, "I feel as though my mind has become a single, steady beam of light." I answered, "Indeed, a scattered mind diffuses its power, but an ordered mind focuses it. Mental discipline is not harshness, it is not suppression, it is alignment. It is the gentle refusal to allow destructive thoughts to occupy your inner chambers. When a fearful thought arises, say immediately, 'I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free.' This statement, spoken with authority, dismisses the fear at once. When a discouraging thought appears, replace it with, 'What God has done for others, He now does for me and more.' When a thought of confusion arises, speak, 'Divine intelligence governs my mind.' These decrees are not battles, they are replacements. Light does not fight darkness, it replaces it, and truth does not fight fear, it dissolves it. You will also find that when your mind becomes ordered, your speech softens. For speech is the overflow of thought. A calm mind speaks calmly, a confident mind speaks with authority, a grateful mind speaks with beauty. People begin to notice this shift. They lean in when you speak. They feel steadied by your presence. They trust your judgment, for they sense that your mind no longer wavers like a reed in the wind. An ordered mind commands respect, not through force, but through clarity. And as your mind becomes clear, the spirit within can finally direct your steps without obstruction. You will feel impulses, gentle, undeniable, to act, to pause, to call someone, to rest, to take a step you once feared. These impulses are not random. They are intuition guiding you along the magic path. The path is revealed only to the ordered mind. The disordered mind stumbles in darkness. The ordered mind walks in light. Say with me now, "Divine intelligence governs my mind. My thoughts move in calm and perfect order." Feel the truth of those words settling into your spirit like sunlight falling upon still waters. They do not merely change your thoughts. They change the atmosphere in which your thoughts arise. When the mind is ordered, life cannot remain disordered, for life always follows consciousness. And you, my friend, are learning to govern the kingdom within, the only kingdom from which lasting change can ever come. My friend, now that we have walked together through the cleansing of your inner ground, the power of your spoken word, the rhythm of divine sequence, the organization of your finances, the harmony of your home, and the ordering of your thoughts, we come at last to the revelation that ties everything together. When divine order is established within, it expresses itself in every corner of your existence without effort or strain. It is the atmosphere you carry, the tone of your voice, the calmness of your step, the certainty of your decisions. It becomes your identity. It becomes your life. Most people imagine that change must begin from the outside, that new habits, new plans, new surroundings must somehow sculpt a new self. But this is a shadow method, an imitation of creation rather than the real work. The true transformation begins inwardly, silently, invisibly. It begins in the recesses of thought, the chambers of belief, the quiet sanctuary of speech. And when the inner world shifts, the outer world cannot help but rearrange itself to match it. I once worked with a woman whose life illustrated this truth with remarkable clarity. When she first came to me, her affairs were tangled. Her relationships were strained, her finances uncertain, her home weary, her mind restless. She believed she needed to fix everything at once, but I told her gently, "My dear, the world you see is only the projection of the world you carry within. Let us begin where the creation truly begins." For 90 days, she applied the principles we have walked through together. She cleared her inner burdens. She ordered her home with love. She blessed her finances. She guarded her speech. She listened to her intuition. She sat in the silence each morning until peace rose within her. At the end of those 90 days, she came to me transformed. She looked different, truly different, though she wore the same garments and carried the same face. But her countenance was changed. Her posture had lifted. Her gaze was steady. Her voice carried the gentle authority of one aligned with her divine center. She said, "Miss Shinn, everything in my life has changed." And indeed it had. Her relationships softened, new opportunities appeared, her finances stabilized, her home glowed with peace. But the greater transformation was the one others could feel even before she spoke. For this is the great secret of divine order. Others recognize your transformation before you do. When you are governed by divine order, you walk into a room differently. People turn to look without knowing why. They sense stability in your presence. They detect purpose in your stillness. They feel at ease in your company. They trust you without calculation. For the soul that is ordered becomes a pillar in the midst of a wavering world. I once taught a man who had long suffered from low esteem. He believed others saw him as nervous, uncertain, unprepared, and indeed they did, for he saw himself that way. When he began organizing his inner and outer life under divine law, he found his confidence rising without force. He no longer doubted every move he made. He no longer apologized for existing. He no longer rushed his speech or shrank from responsibility. As he walked through his office one morning, a colleague stopped him and said, "You seem different, more sure of yourself." He smiled, for he knew the truth. He had become aligned with divine order, and divine order announces itself without words. When a person lives under divine guidance, decisions no longer torment them. They no longer argue with themselves, consult fears, or wobble between two paths. Instead, they speak simply, "Infinite intelligence directs me, and the right choice reveals itself like a lamp lifted in a dark place. There is no striving, no forcing, no frantic guessing. Divine order clears the fog and brings clarity like the dawn. As your consciousness becomes ordered, your relationships undergo a quiet transformation as well. Strife dissolves. Misunderstandings straighten. Those who belong to your new life come forward, and those who no longer align drift away without bitterness. You stop attracting confusion, envy, or chaos, for you no longer carry those vibrations within you. You attract people who honor your time, respect your boundaries, and share your values. You become, as it were, a magnet for right companionship. Even your daily tasks assume a different quality. The simplest action, washing a dish, writing a letter, planning a day, feels infused with a certain quiet dignity. You no longer rush through your duties as burdens. You perform them with the grace of one who knows their work is a form of alignment. Divine order makes even the smallest task feel purposeful. Let me tell you something rarely spoken aloud. An ordered soul becomes a channel of demonstration for others. They look upon you and think, if she can live with such calm, perhaps I can also. Your transformation becomes a testimony, not through speeches or advice, but through presence. You become a living example of the truth that structure is not restraint. Structure is freedom. Divine order is not confinement. Divine order is expansion. It creates room in your life for the blessings that once searched for you and could not find a place to land. I have watched many people attempt to change their lives by trying to be better, more disciplined, more productive, more efficient. Yet they soon tire, for they have built their new life on the weak foundation of willpower. But when a person builds upon divine order, they do not force anything, they allow. They do not strain, they align. They do not battle, they bless. And life responds to this posture with generosity. You will begin to notice that setbacks trouble you less. Delays no longer shake you. A closed door no longer terrifies you. For you understand, deep in your spirit, that divine order governs all. If something leaves your life, it was not yours by right. If something enters your life, it comes bearing your name. If a situation lingers, it has a lesson. If it dissolves, it has fulfilled its purpose. You cease to chase. You cease to cling. You cease to fear. And in this freedom, your life becomes harmonious. Others will comment on your peace. They will say, "You seem so calm," or "You never appear hurried," or "Everything seems to fall into place for you." Some may dismiss it as luck, but you will know it is law. Divine order now governs your affairs. Say with me now, divine order governs my mind, my work, my home, my relationships, and my entire life. What is mine by divine right appears. Now, speak it with the quiet conviction of one who knows the law responds instantly to every word spoken in faith. My friend, you have walked through the gates of confusion into the garden of clarity. You have lifted your life from scattered fragments into a unified whole. You have become the steward of your days, the guardian of your thoughts, the architect of your atmosphere. And now you are ready to live the life that was always prepared for you. A life ordered, a life guided, a life blessed, under grace in perfect ways.